Hello, everybody. So I'm here to give you another video, um, and the topic of this video, the subject of this video is logical reasoning. Okay, logical reasoning. You guys have all heard those two terms, logical and reasoning. Logical being the adjective describing reasoning being a noun, but in a verb form. We're kind of referencing a process, something that we don't really do with our hands, but we do with our minds. Where we reason through problems, we reason through situations, we reason through our thoughts, right? So I guess you could have logical reasoning and illogical reasoning, right? You could have good arguments or bad arguments, good reasoning or bad reasoning, depending on the criteria you have at hand to judge or evaluate these matters. Well, logical reasoning will be on the final exam. It is not in depth. We're not talking about the difference between inductive and deductive arguments. We're not talking about how to check out the validity with truth tables. Um, we're not talking about symbolic logic, and we're not talking about all the different kinds of um, deductive arguments like categorical syllogisms or hypothetical syllogisms or disjunctive syllogisms. Um, we're not talking about any of that kind of stuff, and a lot of that is probably foreign language to you anyway. Know that if you go onto the university and you take philosophy, you're likely to come across a lot of these concepts, which is a good segue to just kind of touch upon. And I know you can't see it real well with the camera I got, but this is a famous painting, a fresco painting that was done by a Italian Renaissance artist named Raphael, and you will find this painting in a room of the Vatican alongside a series of other paintings of other frescoes. This painting is called the School of Athens. The room that this is found in has two other very famous frescoes by the same artist, Raphael. One of them being one of them called Parnassus, which has its own theme, and then the other one called the Disputation of the Holy Sacraments. In fact, let me actually, yes, the Disputation of the Holy Sacrament. Well, these paintings all have a certain theme. The Disputation of the Holy Sacrament is theological in nature, Christian theological. The Parnassus painting is literary in nature. Mount Parnassus in Greek mythology and Greek culture was sort of the place where poets would go, or poets would imagine the muses, those three womanly beings that kind of inspired the arts and crafts within the artistic soul. They would imagine Parnassus as this inspirational mountain for poets or artists. So you see these paintings. This one again is the School of Athens, and this is philosophical in nature. Here we have Plato right here, if you can see, and we have Aristotle to the left of Plato. And then, of course, we have Socrates over here. And there's a lot of other famous figures from the world of Greek thought or Greek philosophy. Now, why am I showing you this picture? Because it's a good way to kind of ground your concept of logical reasoning or of just logic and reason. Because Western culture as well as Eastern culture, if we can distinguish those two kind of, loosely and broadly and categorically, perhaps, we owe a lot to the Greeks about. We owe a lot to the Greeks in regards to science, to literature, to philosophy, to art, to law, to governance. I mean, to history, to tons of stuff. We kind of, when you become more educated, you kind of start to see that the Greeks just have had a humongous role to play within our culture, even within the 21st century United States. We rely and lean a lot upon the Greeks. And of course, philosophy is kind of born within the ancient Greek world, and kind of reaches its apex with Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. And within Plato's literature, often called the dialogues, you see just the epitome of logical reasoning, right? You just get shining examples of what it means to begin with a fact and draw conclusions on the basis of this fact, and bringing other pieces of information into your reasoning process to come to better and better conceptualizations of the matter which you are thinking about with whomever you are thinking these things about with. Okay, that was right. So the School of Athens, try to associate this in your mind with logical reasoning, right? But the question still remains is, well, what exactly do we mean by logical reasoning? And we could give some easy examples in very symbolic form. We could say, if A, then B, A, therefore B, right? Where number one is the first premise, right? If A, then B. Number two is the second premise, and then number three is the conclusion, right? And if we want to take it out of the symbolic form of A's and B's, we could say, if I jump into the shower, then I will get wet. I jump into the shower, therefore I am wet, right? We see the process of going from these premises down to the conclusion. This is something that we do in conversation naturally with one another all day long. It doesn't just happen within the four walls of the classroom. It happens at home. It happens online gaming. It happens on Reddit. It happens in Snapchat. It happens just everywhere, in every single language you can imagine, all across the globe, every time and place. We all reason in ways like this. You should have an intuition when someone's reasoning is just like completely botched and awful. If someone were to say, if I jump in the shower, then I will win $1 million. I jump in the shower, therefore I win $1 million. Okay, under certain circumstances, that could be true. I don't know what the situation would be. Maybe you're on some kind of reality show or something. I don't know. But we all kind of get an intuition that seems a little strange. That doesn't really accord with what we understand about the world. You don't just jump in the shower and win $1 million. But even though that seems ridiculous, the reasoning, the form of the reasoning behind it is still solid. So really, there is a difference between good reasoning that kind of utilizes knowledge of the world. Hold up, I'm going to pause it real quick. All right, sorry about that. I got interrupted, and I kind of lost my train of thought. I had to talk to a teacher, but I was trying to give an example of good and bad logical reasoning, and it might just be helpful for you to understand what you really need from this concept for the test. Well, think about reasoning for the purpose of the text as, a writer providing you with facts and using these facts to convince you of something that the writer thinks would be good for you to do or would be right for you to do, right? They might compare and contrast particular pieces of information or particular facts about the world and try to make you lean towards one line of action instead of another line of action. And if you really want to convince somebody that has a logical mind and is ready for a good argument, you want to make sure your facts are true, that they're relevant, that they're to the point, they're to the purpose of what you're trying to say to the individual that you're communicating to. So just know that on the final, you're going to be asked, you know, how is this writer using logical reasoning to forward or to establish his claim, or right, or his main point? What is he or she offering as evidence to support the claim that they are trying to convince you of? If the author is saying that next time I travel up north, I need to take the train instead of just merely drive, then I'm waiting for some reasons why that should be the line of action that I take instead of just driving as I normally would, right? So it's also a lot about reasons that they offer for why X is better than Y or Y is worse than X. So you're going to see that sort of thing on the test.